This is NC Spin, an unrehearsed discussion on issues of interest to North Carolinians. Now, here is your moderator, Tom Campbell.
Welcome to this special edition of NC Spin. The budget has been passed, the legislature has adjourned sine die, and it's time to find out what they did. And who better to tell us than an insider, a real insider in state government, His Excellency, the Governor of North Carolina. Welcome, Pat McCrory.
Thanks for having me back.
Delighted to have you again with us. This has been a most unusual session, so I'd like for you kind of on a macro level to start by giving your assessment of this short session of the General Assembly.
Well, and the good news is that we followed through on a commitment that we all made, and that was to improve the teacher pay in North Carolina. And we were going to have a teacher pay increase at an average between 5.5% to 7%, including longevity pay. And that's tremendous progress, and it took a lot of hard work, and it was a big battle. But I'm very pleased with that. Now, in addition to giving the teacher pay, too, we front-loaded the teacher pay, so teachers will be rewarded more in their first 10 years of work.
Now, what's the logic behind that?
Because most of the attrition was in the first 10 years.
That's when they leave.
That's when we're losing teachers, and they needed more money within the first 10 years, and that's where we're front-loading the money, so we'll lower the attrition rate in the long term, and people won't either quit teaching or go to another state. And it's common sense. The only downside is we didn't get the rest to do a pilot program for our career pathways, because I want to have teachers to have a career promotional path. And that's what I'm going to push for next year, so we can determine their performance, reward them for their experience, reward them for their marketability, especially math and science teachers, and also reward them for leadership. And that was one of my big disappointments, is we didn't get $9 million approved to do a pilot program in about 5 different counties in North Carolina. The superintendents were behind this effort. Eric Gucan, my education advisor, helped come up with a career pathways plan. But I'm pleased the legislature approved the, instead of 31 to 32 pay steps for teachers, we reduced it to 6. So we stepped on some toes.
Now, NCAE is grousing about that.
I don't understand it.
Even June Atkinson, in an interview I did with her, said that it needed to be consolidated.
The superintendents, the principals, the teachers themselves are the ones who came up with this, but you know, the union has to complain about something, and you can't satisfy everybody. But I'm very proud of that work, but there's still more work to go. So education was a major, major victory. Another area of education that I'm very, very happy with, and that is with the military. We're going to offer in-state tuition for community college education and universities for those military members returning back home from Iraq and Afghanistan for 2 reasons.
Which is big dollars, by the way.
You know what? It won't be that big of dollars, because after
big dollars to them.
Big dollars to them, no doubt about it. But after 1 year, they'd get in-state tuition anyway, because most of the returning soldiers coming home are not North Carolina citizens. They're usually registered in Florida to avoid the income tax. And most people don't realize they can't vote in North Carolina either. But I want them to stay in North Carolina, and I want to help them get jobs because they deserve the jobs. But also, Sharon Decker and I, my Secretary of Commerce, want to use them as a recruitment tool, because companies are looking for talent right now in leadership, technical work, drivers, things of this nature. So to offer that in-state tuition, I think will benefit us in recruiting new jobs in North Carolina. I'm very, very proud of that. I'm also very proud of what we've done with energy. I promised when I became governor that we were going to take some steps for energy exploration, and I hope we're going to do some trial test wells in the Sandhills areas of North Carolina on state property in a safe, environmentally sound way to see what type of gas we have available. We don't even know if we have any, especially wet gas. Now, if we do, it's going to change the economy of North Carolina, but no one's looked. And we're going to begin that process. Also,
and offshore also.
Well, I got a permission. I want to compliment the President, and the Secretary of Interior has given me permission after a lot of visits with the President. I'm chairman of the Offshore Drilling Coalition of Governors, which include the Virginia Governor, Terry McCulloch, a Democrat, and he helped me out also. We're going to begin seismic testing off our coast to see what we have. No one has checked for 25 years.
Wow.
And if we're going to get continued new revenue for education and for roads, it's not going to fall out of the sky. We've got to create that revenue. So I made a commitment that we would get into the energy business, and we're doing just that.
One of the things that I think most of us who've been watching this process for a while will say is This had to be the most contentious legislative session most of us have seen. More than normal disagreement between the House and the Senate. It seems like you and the House were more closely aligned on a lot of issues than the Senate. How would you describe all this relationship?
That's probably a correct assessment. I think there's a history of institutional turf here in North Carolina between the House, the Senate, and the executive branch, regardless of what party's in control.
But this year
it was
you
bad.
were more visible in that legislature and with legislators than any governor I can remember in history. Why did you decide that strategy?
My second 6 months in office, I knew I had to publicly fight some things because I tried in my first 6 months to do it behind the scenes and play their game. I had to use the bully pulpit more to say, if you do this, I'm going to veto it. I'm going to make it a public issue, whether we're in the same party or not. And you know, frankly, I think both houses came up with some good proposals, and sometimes the Senate came up with the proposals which we had to scale back because of affordability and other factors.
I want to talk about that when we come back. For those of you who are saying you'd like to have more NC Spin, I've got good news. You can have additional video content from our panels and from other leading opinion makers, all on our website, ncspin.com. After each show, we usually tape what we call the after spin. The panelists get to tell you what they wish they'd said on the show, as well as other comments. In addition, we've got perspectives posted throughout the week in print and on video. So keep up by visiting our website, ncspin.com, and catch us at NC Spin on Facebook and at NC Spin Tweets. Balanced debate for the old North State. More with Governor McCrory after these messages.
NC Spin will return after these messages.
My name is Bernie Teal. Sunburst Farms has been in my family for over 35 years. Last year I had to do something I'd never done before. Destroy 10 acres of good squash. I wasn't able to find enough workers. The opportunity is there. American families are demanding locally grown vegetables, and I want to provide that to them. So please tell Congress that we need immigration reform now.
Your family physician supports Medicaid reform. That's good for North Carolina patients, providers, and taxpayers.
For over a year, we've worked with the Governor and the General Assembly on a plan for responsible Medicaid reform.
The Senate's proposed Medicaid changes are a departure from this plan. Changes that could lead to a decrease in the number of primary care physicians providing care in communities that need them the most.
The destruction of our state's medical home network, a network that prevents unnecessary hospital and emergency room visits,
and disregards the elderly, the blind, and disabled, and the health care they need. Care we're morally and legally obligated to provide.
Now is not the time to disregard the progress we've made. Now is the time for lawmakers to implement responsible Medicaid reform that protects and improves health care for all North Carolinians.
Visit rnchealthcare.com and tell your lawmaker to support responsible Medicaid reform.
We now return to NC Spin.
We continue our special edition of NC Spin with the Governor, Pat McCrory. Governor, this past week was very interesting. It's good that we had you on this week. The House took up HB 1224, which the Senate had hung all kinds of Christmas tree lights and caveats on and so forth like that. This was a bill, however, that you really favored that had economic development potential to lure jobs to North Carolina. Were you surprised by what happened in the House?
No, I wasn't surprised, and frankly, I'm not upset at the House. Even though I wanted the majority of the bill, that's not the way we should do legislation. That's the type of process that I criticized when the Democrats were in control, when I was mayor of Charlotte, and I will criticize there was too many Christmas ornaments.
And the Senate was
bill.
virtually blackmailing the House.
Well, some would say they were blackmailing, and there were parts of the bill that had no relevance to the other part of the bill, and that's not the way you should do legislation. I had some real veteran legislators call me up the night of that vote and say, Governor, I can't vote for this, even though I agree with 2/3 of it. The other 1/3 is just, I cannot hold my nose. And I said, I understand. Yeah. And now even the next day, including the day we're taping this, some parts of the bill have already been pulled out, where we've got to clean unemployment bill where we've cleaned up the mess about confidentiality. By the way, I had a veto sustained for the first time starting during my, because I vetoed an unemployment bill because frankly they were politicizing and doing stuff that I used to criticize, and I vetoed a good bill because they had 10% that was just bad politics. That was sustained, and they're going to bring it to me. It's clean now. So the good news is,
HB 1224 going to come back?
I think parts of it already have this last day of the legislature. Parts of it came back tonight. And that's the way we should be doing legislation. Instead of putting all the Christmas ordinance in one bill, they shouldn't. I think Sharon Decker and I, regarding the incentive things, especially for manufacturing and long-term infrastructure, I think we need to redevelop it. I've talked to Sharon today about it, and I think I need to re-examine how we put something together, because I favor ways we can help infrastructure of a major, if we want to recruit a major automobile factory to North Carolina, we're the only state in the South which doesn't have one. We're going to have to help with the infrastructure.
One of the things that's been interesting to me in following a lot of these discussions is everybody agreed we needed tax reform.
Right.
We've got, 400 special tax exceptions and preferences and loopholes and so forth like that. The goal, of course, is to make the playing field level, to make the tax code simple for people to understand, and then all of a sudden we get tripped up by stuff like the film incentives and the historic preservation incentives. This will make you pull your hair out.
Well, there are certain things. We wanted to make North Carolina more business friendly regarding taxes, and I want to reward productivity as opposed to punish productivity. And I'm a firm believer, and I said this when I ran for governor both in 08 and 12, is that we need a tax system that doesn't punish working people. And our income tax and our corporate tax rate were the highest in the Southeast. And if you're a border city or border town of South Carolina, Virginia, or Tennessee, people could move their business right across the border and save 2% net. So we did the right thing with tax reform. My big fight with tax reform was not to do such a dramatic shift, to impact the revenue at such a large scale. And I had to make some compromises in order to do that. But
and there's still some concern about how that's going to affect the budget next year.
I still have some concern. But in the long run, I think it's going to be the best model, and we needed to do it. You can blame me, by the way. You're paying 50 cents more to go to the movies because of tax reform. It's a service tax as opposed to an income tax. You're going to have 1 to 2% more in your paycheck, but you're going to have to pay 50 cents more to go to a movie.
If you choose
or to pay for a newspaper.
If you choose to go to the movie.
That's the difference. You're getting to choose that spending.
All right, let's move on to some of the other things. You talked about education, and so one of the two things there I want to talk about. One was teacher assistants.
Yeah.
You were able to save the teacher assistants.
Yeah, I made several criteria on the pay increases, and the legislature at times were wanting to put everything into a bill, and I said I'm going to veto a bill, and I'm making it a big public issue. The original proposal for teacher pays was going to cut 6,000 teachers, assistants. Now I do want to recognize some of those were positions where frankly some superintendents were not using that money for teachers assistants to defend the legislature. But there was no way I was going to cut those types of teacher assistants.
But the budget, as it was written, after the fact, everybody discovered, frankly...
There's one word that needs to be changed, which impacts it's about a $4 million impact for the whole state.
You said you think the school systems and that you, as executive administrator of the budget, can find a way to...
Well, actually, Nelson Dollar has said that. We're still looking for a way, and that's some of the decisions I'm going to have to decide in the next 30 days on how I can change one word in the general statute, which may impact, again, $4 million for the whole $20 billion budget, which I think we can solve that. The other thing I drew the line in the sand in was I was not going to cut Medicaid eligibility. Which one of the proposals was being discussed and voted on by one of the chambers, was cutting Medicaid eligibility for group homes, which includes
thousands of people.
About 5,200 people, and I wasn't going to put those people.
I want to get to Medicaid in a second, but I got to talk about Common Core.
Yeah.
Because you've been a big supporter of Common Core.
I'm a supporter of Common Core, but I also recognize the testing aspect needs some revision and change. The title of the bill of Common Core says we're eliminating Common Core. If you read the bill, it doesn't eliminate Common Core. It reviews Common Core, and only the State Board of Education, with Bill Covey as its chairman, can change Common Core.
But they set up a special committee to establish these. And frankly, one of the things, and we talked about it on NC Spin, one of the things that concerns us a little bit is that the legislature this year really got into the business of invading the executive separations of powers by wanting to take over the appointment of many of these committees.
We agree, and I'm going to have to fight them from a constitutional standpoint, including even the Kolash Commission. I think this concept of creating commissions that are appointed by the legislature, the majority by the legislature, is unconstitutional, regardless of the subject, because that means the legislature is doing the operations of state government, which is not their responsibility, and I think there's a constitutional issue there. Not only that, but the more commissions you form, and we're getting this, it's been done by Democrats and Republicans alike for the last 20 years, where the legislature forms commissions. Who oversees the commission then if they're totally independent?
The executive branch.
Some of the laws don't allow the executive. They work for the executive branch, but there's no way to hire or fire them.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I vetoed an unemployment bill, which finally was sustained because of the politics of a commission.
More Medicaid and Kolash after these messages.
NC Spin will return after these messages.
Hi, I'm Linda Loveland. I want the best for my kids. Feeding them foods they like within my budget is a priority. But what do we really know about these foods? North Carolina farmers and food experts give you a website to find it all. FeedTheDialogueNC.com, a place where moms like you and me can learn more about the foods we eat and the farmers that feed us. Check it out. Add your input and help feed the dialogue. Let's talk food at FeedTheDialogueNC.com.
The best part about being a member of a Touchstone Energy Cooperative is that it's your Touchstone Energy Cooperative. Learn more about the power of your co-op membership at TogetherWeSave.com.
North Carolina's Touchstone Energy Cooperatives, looking out for you.
We now return to NC Spin.
Welcome back to this special edition of NC Spin with the Governor of North Carolina, Pat McCrory. Governor, you mentioned a few minutes ago Medicaid reform. You've said from the very beginning Medicaid is broken in North Carolina. Yes. $13 billion program. You and a special commission that you put together came up with an affordable care organization option for Medicaid reform. The Senate just basically said they didn't want anything to do with that as a result.
The House almost voted unanimously for it.
And so I assume this is on your agenda for 2015.
Absolutely. In fact, if I can get a deal worked out before then, I'll call a special session, but not unless I can get the House and Senate to agree. But Secretary Aldona Voss, who, by the way, is fantastic, and there's still some major issues in her department that'll constantly come out, but she's the one finding these issues. And sometimes you get blamed for finding issues, including broken computer systems that you inherit that were bought by previous administrations. But she's developed a system. It comes from the doctors. I found out with education and medicine, you get the ideas from outside the Beltline. You go out and find out.
Well, you got to have the House of Medicine involved.
You got to have medicine involved, and basically it means when a Medicaid patient comes to a doctor, they get total service from many different doctors, from their health doctor, from their heart doctor, from their dentist, from their orthopedic person, all at one time, and we can save money by doing this. And the doctors like it, the hospitals like it. I think the Senate's going to come over. I think we're going to work some things out, and. But it takes change, and we're stepping on a lot of toes in healthcare. Some of the doctors are going to have to compromise. Some of the insurance companies are going to have to compromise because the current economic model for healthcare is not sustainable in North Carolina.
It's not sustainable anywhere in the country, and
it's not sustainable for the government.
Well, in a report that just came out this past week said that had North Carolina expanded Medicaid according to the terms of the Affordable Care Act, we'd have added about 500,000 people more to the Medicaid rolls, and that we would have received $51 billion in additional federal monies that we are not going to get. You were pretty vocal about that pretty early on in the administration, as was the legislature. Did you make the right decision? Are you still standing
Absolutely,
by?
we made the right decision. But I have always said I'm keeping the open door for what to do next, because, as you know, in our first year, we knew we were inheriting a broken computer systems, 2 broken computer systems that had not been turned on in previous administrations. We turned it on knowing it was going to be broken.
Spent a lot of money on it, too.
A lot of money was spent on it. So we knew we had to fix some operational issues. But right now I'm studying, in fact, today I talked to the governor of Pennsylvania about a new program he's about to roll out, Governor Pence in Indiana. We're looking at different options that can fit North Carolina.
All right, I want to get into coal ash. The legislature on the final day finally came up with a compromise on the coal ash cleanup. Now, the provision called for a commission, called for the clean ash ponds to be cleaned up. The definition was hanging everybody up on this low risk. Are you satisfied with the bill that came up?
I haven't had a chance to read the final bill. It was just passed today as we speak. But I anticipate signing that. I'm not happy with the commission, and we're probably going to have to do a constitutional challenge to that commission. Not because it's the coal ash commission, but I'd also apply that to there's ideas of a Medicaid commission. There are so many commissions being formed with total independence, and if those commissions start doing bad jobs, there's no one in control.
Well, they're going to put this commission in public safety. It's not even going to be in Diener. What was the logic behind that?
There is no logic. It makes no sense whatsoever to put that in public safety. And as you see, I haven't had a chance to read the bill. I've been in meetings all day, but I knew it was either Diener or public safety. It makes no sense to put that in public safety.
Duke says this is going to cost $10 billion. Mm-hmm. The big question is, who should pay for this?
The answer should be by the Utilities Commission makes that decision and has public hearings to do it. We should take the politics out of it.
Is it unreasonable to believe that the shareholders and the ratepayers both
I think it'll end up being some sort of shared process, just like it is with nuclear power or any other type of power that we're dealing with right now. It's a shared process, by the way, even with solar power and other types of power, which are subsidized.
All right,
but Duke's got to take care of their responsibility, and they did some shoddy work. They did some shoddy work with the dams, they did some shoddy work in their communications, and they did some shoddy work in the infrastructure underneath the dams, and I'm very critical of the way they've handled it, but at the same time, we've got to fix it and make sure it doesn't happen again.
All right, I got to ask you about the big flap. For the past, if there's a loaded question in this interview, this is it. Your Duke Energy stock and the reporting and all of the big brouhaha that went on around it. Give us 20 seconds on that.
I worked for Duke Power for 29 years, which wasn't a secret. I had a 401k retirement plan because I do not have a pension with Duke Power. They cut our pension out many, many years ago. And I let the media know that I sold the stock in April before the reports were due. So because we let the media know, my attorney said we don't need to report it because the form says as of that day. He didn't read the day before. We should have reported 6 months ago. It's very confusing. But basically, I was more truthful than the form required, and I notified the media regardless. It's never been a secret that I had a retirement account, and anyone who thinks I'm making decisions based upon that doesn't know my record of over 24 years. I'm very disappointed in the Raleigh News and the Charlotte News for making a story, frankly, out of nothing. But some people will believe anything.
Sells papers.
It does sell papers.
All right. After these messages, we're going to ask the governor what his plans are for the rest of the year and for the year ahead. Stay with us.
NC Spin is brought to you in part by the North Carolina Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau and Agriculture. We keep North Carolina growing.
Does your North Carolina business or organization have a story to tell? I'm Richard Campbell, and at Carolina Broadcasting and Publishing, we help tell stories that connect you to the people who will respond. We take the time to understand our clients' needs and what makes them unique. We craft their stories through the efficient use of words, images, and videos that resonate with their desired audience. We also know that a good story is incomplete without a call to action. On video, on air, online, and in print, from concept to final production, no one can help tell your story more effectively or affordably than we can. For special introductory offers, visit carolinabroadcasting.com or call 919-832-1416. Again, that's carolinabroadcasting.com. Let us help tell your story today.
Welcome back. We've got about a minute and a half left, Governor. I want you to tell the people, what are the goals for the rest of the year, and is there any special message you want to give to the people of North Carolina?
Our goals are going to be continue to get North Carolina back to work. And when I came into office a year and a half ago, our unemployment rate was the 5th highest in the country. It was an embarrassment. We're beating California, California, New Jersey, and Nevada. We could do better than that, and now we're not even in the top 30 anymore. It's because we made some tough short-term decisions, and we're going to have to continue to make tough short-term decisions for long-term viability for our state and economic prosperity. And there's no better state than North Carolina. We're going to get in the energy business. We're going to connect education with jobs. We're going to reform Medicaid so we have good quality service for the people who need Medicaid, and we reduce the cost to taxpayers. There's some great agendas, and I've got a great team that are problem solvers, that are dynamic, that are diverse, and we're going to have a good year.
Well, you've heard our spin on the issues of the day. Thank you, Governor McCrory, for being with us, and we look forward to doing an end-of-the-year report with you. To stay informed all during the week, visit our website and catch NC Spin next week when our panel does a wrap-up on the legislature. Until then, stay informed and watch out for the spin.
Join us next week and get the spin on issues facing our state.